I'm doing good. How you guys doing?
Doing well. No. So thanks for taking the time to be with us today. My name is Tiffany Esposito. I am the CEO of the Bonita Springs Area Chamber of Commerce, and I also serve as the chair of the Southwest Florida Alliance of Chambers. So this group with you here today is the Alliance of Chambers. We are a coalition of chambers of commerce in Lee and Collier County, representing 6,000 businesses and 300,000 constituents and residents within the Southwest Florida area. We are recording this interview and we'll be posting it on our websites and our social media. So thank you again for taking the time to be with us today. Before we get started, we'll go around real quick and just introduce who's on the call. So if we'll go in the same order as last time, we'll go Donna, Jackie, Colleen, and then on from there. Donna, if you want to kick us off.
Thank you for being here with us. My name is Donna Germain. I'm the president and CEO of the Chamber of Commerce of Cape Coral.
Hey, good morning, Byron. Jackie Lezak, President, Executive Director, Fort Myers Beach Chamber of Commerce.
Good morning, welcome. I'm Colleen DePasquale from the Greater Fort Myers Chamber of Commerce.
Michael, Jenna, and Chris.
Michael Dobby, Greater Naples Chamber. Good to see you, Representative Donald.
Michael, how you doing?
Good.
Jenna Vasaka Forster, Greater Naples Chamber. Hey, Byron.
Hey, Jenna.
Good morning, Rep. I'm here on behalf of Southwest Florida Chamber. Good to see you.
How you doing? Who is that? That you, Lopez?
Chris Lopez. Yeah, Chris Lopez.
Lopez, man, how's baby duty going?
Oh, it's great. He's 7 months old already. It's crazy.
Enjoy it, man. It goes fast, man. I'm telling them like to clean up after themselves, dump trash, and put their clothes away.
Good luck with that.
Yeah.
So we're asking all of the candidates the same question. So we're going to kick it off. And if you want to just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, my name is Byron Donalds. I'm originally from Brooklyn, New York. I've lived in Naples for 17 years. I'm a graduate of Florida State University with degrees in finance and marketing. In my professional career, I actually started in commercial banking at a bank called TIB Bank of the Keys, which was then bought out by Capital Bank, which I think now is First Horizon or First Tennessee. I can't remember. You know, it's banking. The names on the door change from time to time. I left banking in 2007. Because, frankly, of the financial collapse. I was actually writing the loan loss report for my bank and for my board of directors, and I could see what was going to happen in the housing collapse, and I didn't want to do bank workouts. So I went to work in insurance. It was an international insurance firm where we packaged universal life policies for 2 international pension plans, one in Canada, one in Taiwan. I was doing that for about 7 years. And then the last 5 years, I've been in financial services. I'm a partner in a wealth management firm here in Naples. I got into politics about a decade ago. I came in through the Tea Party movement. This was about the same time as the financial collapse. And I was really concerned about, you know, the future of the country. Well, shoot, not 10 years, it's more like 12 now. Time is flying. So it's one of those things where I was really concerned about the financial future of the country. Started doing a lot of political research, not just on modern politics, but on political philosophy. Really found out that I was actually quite conservative through that research and through that reading. I got involved in the Tea Party movement in 2009. In 2010, I just stayed involved. In 2011, when Herman Cain ran for president, I was on his presidential team here in Collier working on that campaign. Ran for Congress in 2012. When Connie Mack decided to run for the United States Senate, lost that race, but really found my footing politically in Southwest Florida. I ran for the Florida House of Representatives in 2016, was successful there, and I've been in the Florida legislature the last 4 years.
Thank you. So what prompted you to run in this particular election for the congressional seat?
Well, if you look at Southwest Florida, 2 things really stand out. First, it's probably the most conservative, or it's one of the more conservative areas in the country. We have a lot of people here who are conservatives in nature. Even if you move past party affiliations, they are actually quite conservative. And so I believe that our area deserves to be represented by somebody who has been consistent when it comes to the Constitution, when it comes to individual liberties, when it comes to actual restraint with respect to federal powers. The second thing is that we are actually going on our 5th congressman in a decade. And so our area does need somebody who's going to actually hold this position, have the necessary principles that align with our constituents, and actually be there to do the job for an extended period of time. The third part is something that's was always been more personal to me. As a Republican, I think that, there is a duty for the Republican Party to really take our principles to all voters. And I think that I have a unique skill set that, frankly, not many other people in the area have, to really help expanding the Republican Party, not based upon trying to change policies or change principles, but actually taking the opportunity to explain those policies and those principles and the thought process behind them to all voters. I think that's important for our politics writ large in the country. And so those are the reasons I decided to run for Congress.
Thank you. And what do you feel makes you the most qualified to represent the business community?
Well, actually, I'm very qualified to represent the business community because I'm one of the few people in this race that understands capital formation, understands access to capital. It's been my career my entire life. So even though I do have political experience, I also have significant business experience, having worked in financial markets for a very long time. I had a meeting with the American Bankers Association in DC about 4 or 5 months ago, and what they told me was that if I were elected, I would be like one of 2 members of all of Congress, House and Senate, with actual banking experience, who actually knows the financial system well enough to actually help small businesses and large businesses across our country. You have people in our race who they are business owners per se, and they've been able to acquire capital and create businesses for themselves. Or you have people who have served in elective office, but they have no idea what the financial market looks like. I'm actually the best of both worlds. I have a detailed understanding of capital markets and financial instruments, but I also have a detailed understanding of how to work in a legislative process. And I think for the business community, especially with what we're seeing right now in the aftermath of coronavirus, which is in some respects created an economic pandemic, if you will. We need somebody with my skill sets who can actually be a leader on day one in Washington and not trying to learn the ropes of what it means to be elected, while at the same time having the business acumen necessary to help lead some of the reforms that might be necessary going forward in our country.
Thank you. In your opinion, what's the most pressing issue facing the Southwest Florida business community? And if elected, what will you do to address this issue?
Right now, it's twofold. The first is reopening and what the true implications are going to be. I think a lot of this is going to deal in part with consumer confidence, which I think is going to come back. If you're driving around today as opposed to a month ago, you could tell a difference in road traffic. I was driving from Cape Coral to Naples last night, and I thought it was season. I was just like, where did all these cars come from? But I think consumer confidence is a big one. The second part is going to be making sure as the Federal Reserve begins to address its purchases that they've done in financial markets, is what are the capital lines going to look like for some of our small businesses who have been shut down for a month, 2 months, in some respects even 3 months, as they're trying to get their workers back. The other thing that's always going to be important to our area is water quality. I know we're not talking about it now because we're not seeing algae blooms in Cape Coral. And we're not really seeing massive red tide. I read somewhere that some people were saying that this is the best water we've seen in several years, and I'm thankful for that. But we have to continue to fund the necessary projects to restore, to actually fix the Everglades flowway system. And I think it's important for people to understand that the flowway system was designed by the Army Corps to stop flooding in the farmland and to have massive flooding going to the east coast of Florida. It is actually doing what it's supposed to do. The problem is that it was never designed for 15 million people living south of the I-4 corridor. And so as we have to change that flow system to accommodate the fact that we have people living all throughout our areas in South Florida, it's important that we continue to fix those waterways so that our businesses will continue to be able to operate and be successful. I think those are the big things that are facing them today.
Thank you. And we have some water quality questions coming up in a minute. Before we get there, so Southwest Florida's economy, as you know, is heavily dependent on leisure and hospitality sectors. So if elected, what would you do to encourage economic diversification in the region?
Great question. I think that, I think that's still going to be a staple of our area. But the important thing is making sure that we have the necessary infrastructure to bring other businesses in. One of the things that's happening, and this is more inland, it's not so much Southwest Florida, but I know that there has been a project that I've supported when I was in the Florida legislature, which was the expansion of the Everglades Airport so they could take in commercial freight. This would actually alleviate some of the spoilage that occurs at Miami International Airport. So if you had a regional commercial airport closer to Southwest Florida, what you actually do in areas like Lehigh and Alva and so on and so forth, there would actually be more businesses created because the freight coming out of Everglades would have to transition through our area or up the middle of the state, or even in some respects back to 95. So I think the commercial infrastructure is one of the key things that we need. I think on a more local level, something I've always advocated for is that I think that Collier County and Lee County actually have to start doing some more regional planning around commercial infrastructure and not just wait for the state of Florida, even the federal government. Because if there's really no place where you can have a commercial enterprise zone, and I know we do a lot of mixed use flex space in our area, but I'm talking about more of a corporate corridor and corporate nodes. I think especially people who are in New York City right now are definitely trying to find ways to diversify where they're going to do their business. Especially as somebody in financial services, we realize that, you know, we still have a Wall Street, but frankly, you can trade from a desk. You don't have to be on the trading floor to actually effectuate financial transactions. So I think those are some of the key things that we should be doing in our area to diversify our business footprint.
Thank you. So this group was formed in the wake of the 2018 water crisis, and we have very much made water quality our #1 priority, which you've mentioned some of the water quality issues that we have. If elected, what specific projects would you advocate for to improve and protect Southwest Florida's water quality?
Well, the first big one is that the federal government has to actually continue what it started for the last couple of years. And I think it's important to acknowledge the work that Congressman Rooney has done, and even Congressman Clausen before him, actually bringing light to our water quality issues here in Southwest Florida. But we have to have, the federal government has to continue funding the flowway projects in the CERT plan, making sure that we continue things like the C43 reservoir, which actually looks like it's going to come online in about a year or two. It looks like that's going to come online. So we have to finish the CERT projects. I think we can't. What often happens in these water quality issues is that a project might jump ahead of another project because, frankly, there's a member of Congress or a member of the Florida legislature who may want it to happen. But we have to actually fix all the projects. We have to do the work north of Lake Okeechobee as well. We can't just ignore the north of the lake and only worry about south of the lake, because north of the lake is actually where you get a lot of runoff from the cow farms that exist along the Kissimmee River Basin. So they're all important. They all have to be completed. The second big thing we're going to have to really sit down and figure out is how we're going to deal with septic tanks that do exist along the banks of the Caloosahatchee River. It is without question that these septic tanks do leach and leak into the Caloosahatchee, and they also lead to our water quality issues. So I think there's going to be a situation where there's going to have to be some federal funding, some state funding, and a new program to try to address septic tanks on the Kissimmee River Basin and on the banks of the Caloosahatchee, simply because they do lead to issues as well.
Great, and on that same topic, what specific actions do you think lawmakers should take to improve and protect Southwest Florida's waterways?
Well, I mean, like I said, I think that's kind of been done. You know, if we're going to be honest, that stuff has kind of been done in what's already been passed. The question is funding. It's not specifically new law, it's funding in the areas. Like one of the things we did in our last budget stateside is put money into red tide research with FGCU. And I know that Moat Marine is taking a big lead in that. So it's not so much what are the new actions to be taken, it's actually funding the actions that legislative bodies have already done. Like, I don't want to underestimate this, how important this is. Funding the projects is critical if we're ever going to get to the next step. Because if you don't take care of the stuff that we know is going to help alleviate a lot of these issues, then you can't effectively plan for what the next wave of action needs to be. If you know what I'm saying, if that makes sense.
Thank you. So last question, is there anything else you'd like us to know about you or your priorities?
Ooh, I don't really get that question that much. Listen, I think I think the big thing is my priorities are making sure number one that we continue to operate as a free market capitalist system. I think it's without question, even if you look at what's happened during the coronavirus pandemic, where small businesses and families have had to rely on direct payments or loan programs that were set up on the fly by the federal government. What's clear is that no matter the intentions from elected officials, they simply don't have the ability to address every citizen's and every business's needs at a moment's notice. There will be dislocation. There will be supply breakdowns. People will get left in the lurch. And the only thing that really addresses the most people's needs on a continual flowing basis is a free market capitalist system where people are making voluntary choices to enter into commerce. And if you really look at what's happened in the coronavirus pandemic, we've actually had a real world example of capitalism versus socialism, quote unquote. And it's clear that socialism is a failure. So my number one priority is to make sure that our commerce system, our rules in commerce are clear. The rules and regulations that do exist make sense, that we get rid of stuff that is archaic and really slows down business, so that when the next crisis or pandemic comes, our business community can take those lumps and continue to hit the ground running to do what they do best, which is raise capital, provide services, make money, and employ people. And I think that's really important for the business community. On a broader point, I do think that, listen, we are in the middle of, not just with what's going on in the country from a racial situation, but we are in the middle of a major differences on an ideological basis in America. And I think it's important that we have legislative leaders who can actually help to bridge those divides when it comes to not just race, but also ideology. And it's without question, I'm the only person in this race that can actually get that done in an effective way.
Great. Well, thank you so much for taking time to speak with us today. We wish you luck in the election.
Listen, thanks, guys.